Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV.
Five-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Let's talk about something that's quietly reshaping the way organizations work. Shadow AI. You might think your company has AI under control. There's a policy, maybe a list of approved tools. But here's the reality. While leadership says, use this, employees are out there using whatever helps them get the job done. ChatGPT, Claude, you name it. Shadow AI is already inside your company, whether you see it or not. And that's where the real risk begins. Because you can't govern what you can't see. If work is happening outside the systems leadership expects, how do you track it? How do you know what's being shared, what's being created, or even what's being exposed? The truth is, most of what makes your organization tick isn't written down anywhere. But AI is making decisions based on what is. Now, let's talk about liability. Imagine someone prompts an AI to create an image that looks a lot like a famous character. Who owns that output? If it crosses the line, who's responsible? The lines between innovation and infringement are getting blurry and the stakes are higher than ever. So what's the way forward? Think of it like learning to ride a bike. You need training wheels. You're going to fall, maybe scrape your knees. But with the right support and governance, you build capability and confidence. Governance isn't about locking things down. It's about building maturity and accountability as you move fast. Here's the big question. Who owns the decision? Where's the proof? If your organization can't answer that, you don't have governance. You have hope. And hope isn't a strategy. If you want to get ahead of the shadow AI crisis, it's time to get serious about responsibility. Because the technology will keep evolving. Whether your leadership does, that's up to you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Follow Brand Podcast. This is your host, Grant McGaugh. I'm out here in Omaha, Nebraska. We're going to have Daniel Ikem. He's out in Washington, D.C. He's telling me right now it's colder in D.C. than it is out here in the Midwest. Believe it or not, true story, it has happened. And we're going to have a conversation today about some things I think are very, very important. I want people to understand this. Technology doesn't fail in a vacuum. It fails at the point where responsibility becomes unclear. We need to understand this as AI accelerates. Leaders everywhere are being asked to move faster, to innovate harder, to compete globally, often without fully understanding the legal, the ethical, and the strategic consequences of the systems that they are deploying. And the risk is very, very real when it comes to a lack of governance, clarity, and foresight. So today, my guest, Daniel Ikem, a strategic leader, works at the intersection of emerging technology, intellectual property, and public policy. And he has led global partnerships, advised organizations on AI governance and go to market strategy, and is now deeply focused on expanding access to AI and IP education, particularly for communities that have historically been left out of these conversations. So, Daniel, would you like to introduce yourself on the Follow Brand podcast?
Yes, and of course, thank you for having me, Grant. So yes, as you mentioned, my name is Daniel Ikem. I'm based here in Washington, D.C. Serve as the founder for the Diverse IP Alliance, which is really just focused on supporting and educating diverse students, particularly those in HBCUs, and just understanding like the intersections between technology and the law policy as well. Just because, as you've mentioned, the world is changing. I think it's changing faster every day. And, really just want to make sure that, those who have historically been left behind are in this ever evolving landscape. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
This is important. I want people to really kind of frame what's happening as AI has come out, and we've heard about we're going to get some more governance around this. We're going to have some more laws and regulation around it. But every time you start trying to frame something together, the technology goes beyond it. Like, wow, we didn't really see this happening or that happening. This is changing how I think law is practiced, how certain governance systems are put together. And what you said earlier about, hey, in our world, if you're in a certain community, you're not completely been represented in some of these things when it comes down to law, and it comes down to strategy and where AI and where you sit. I think right now there might be a big misunderstanding that leaders have about AI governance. Can you just help us frame the landscape from your lens of what this looks like?
Yes. So I think the best way to describe it is really like the challenge that big tech companies are having right now. I previously worked at Microsoft, managing partnerships between Microsoft and other technology companies. And when ChatGPT came out, it's almost as if a bomb went off in the room because there was a lot of different ways to kind of view this situation. And this all ties back to AI governance because, when we think about just the word governance, we think of the government, we think of just regulating a system. But the challenge with artificial intelligence, even at just the LLM level, is just that it can have an impact on every and all, decisions, strategies, points of contacts, or just, points of touch points. And I think that's the biggest challenge. When you say AI governance, or when anyone says it, I think people just go to the models like, okay, we're just going to use this AI model for these use cases. But the challenge, at least in an organization standpoint, is, people may come in with their own AI models. It's like, okay, we're going to use Copilot here, or they're going to tell us to use Copilot, but really I'm using ChatGPT to get my work done. And, that's, the term for that is called shadow AI, as in like, the leadership is saying, yeah, I can use it, but just tell us how you're doing it. But then everyone is really doing their own thing. And then the challenge with that, in addition to just the misalignment, is you can't really track what's happening because none of the work that's being done is in the systems that the leadership is expecting, middle management and what have you to, provide in terms of like review documentation. And that's just from a work hierarchy standpoint. There's still the aspect of, depending on how large, how old, or even how complex your organization is, we have to think about how all of this data is being collected and used to then, fit into this AI model. Like if you have the tool or the system through this AI model, depending on if everyone's using it, you still have to be feeding it this information that existed before. And there's really maybe 2 to 3 problems with that currently. As I just touched upon about age, complexity, and just size organization. Not everyone has access to all the information within an organization, not even the CEO. CEO can't know what every single employee is doing. And that ties more to both age and size. But not everything we do, and this is even more general to AI as a whole, is written down anywhere. The best example I like to give when explaining this to people is just, explain to me how you know how to read and write. Like write that down on a piece of paper. And that's one of the I guess current short gaps or just gaps in AI capabilities is everything is really just based off of images and text. But the world is more than just image and text. There's a whole 3D world that we live in. And it's going to take some time, and I guess a lot of thinking resources to kind of break through to that space. I believe the gentleman's name is Lonnie LeCun, who works at Meta or used to work at Meta. He's always saying like LLMs are not the way to go. And I think he, as someone in the field, understands everything can't just be based off of text, because you just need that physicality, which kind of ties back into like robotics and whatnot, to really have a full picture. So, I would say like that's the second major issue in regards to just AI governance. You can have people who are aligned, to address the first part, but then you still have to understand where are the real limitations or considerations in terms of the data. Now, the third thing I would say, and this ties directly to complexity, is just, it ties us back to the first part too. It's just, you have to now consider everything that your organization does, even the things you take for granted, because post or pre-ChatGPT or pre-LLMs rather, it's just like, oh, well, someone can do this, or maybe no one is doing it, but you don't have to worry about like a system, like in terms of like a agentic AI model, maybe doing something automatically with limited oversight. And so now you run into the issue of like, well, what are we missing or what are we not considering? And how do we then apply that to basically every job that is done within your organization? But then even more so, how do you balance this in regards to, well, how much AI or how powerful do we need this AI to be to what we are doing today, to what we want to do tomorrow? And then how do you balance that with like improvements that you just touched upon to the models? Like, because I think initially that was kind of shown as a benefit for AI models. It's like, it does, it's said to do as much as the companies say that it does. But you don't have to worry about like, oh, now we need to update our systems. Like, no, once it updates, it just magically knows how to do everything you asked it to do even better. But the problem is you still have to go through everything you said it to do. And there's still a jagged frontier component as to, well, what does it do well versus not well? Because we also have to keep track of that.
I think Daniel, we're getting this uncharted territory.
Yes.
We've done things a certain way. And I want people to think about it like this. The world at one point in time, some parts of the world are still like this, a very agriculture, they're agricultural society. And then we did it a certain way and the laws and regulations and everything were the language that was used was geared to that agricultural economy that was taking place. Then we moved into a manufacturing world, and that those laws are now changing, and we've become more urbanized. And if you really start tracking law and governance, you start to see, well, these are radical changes. They had to come up with new laws basically because there were no laws for things that were happening in a manufacturing world, let's say. And then as we got into what we call the information age, it changed even more. And it's like, wow, this is really morphing and growing. Now with agentic AI systems, things these are autonomous robots basically that can think and act and change behavior. This is different, folks. I want you to understand what an agentic AI system is gearing to become. We start looking at artificial general intelligence or AGI. Now, who's responsible for this robot? All of a sudden, like, no, I'm not going to go left just because you told me to go left. I'm going to circle around and go right, left, and jump out the box. You're like, whoa, who's responsible? Now you get in there like and I think this has been challenged in a court of law when it says something like this. What if your AI has to make a choice between running someone over or avoiding an accident? Let's just say, like, who's responsible for that? Is the car manufacturer? Is it the robotic manufacturer? Is the person who shouldn't have been in the way? I don't know, because these are laws that have never been litigated before. And then to your point, speed. Because all right, let's say you come out with something that makes sense. We've got governance. We're ready to go ahead and put it into play because it's always in a reactive mode. Now you've got something completely new that's been released, let's say, into the wild that doesn't behave like anything else that has come out. So we're in this hyper advanced age of things just changing rapidly. Speed, responsibility, governance. I mean, here's the question. How do we either govern something like that, or do we slow innovation, or what do we do that you think that we need to put in place that kind of help us as we grow into this new reality?
Yes. I mean, ideally, the answer would just be to slow down, but there are too many factors in play that make that it's not impossible. It's actually very possible, but it's not aligned to goals, both from a political and geopolitical standpoint, and even like a business standpoint. Like, living here in Washington, D.C., talking to people or going to events where people are having these, same questions, you can't say, let's slow down, but the response to that is always going to be, well, what about China, or what about some other country that is also developing AI, but in most cases it's about US versus China. And then, how that even plays to where the economy right now is, most of the economy, and I apologize for background noise, is really driven by the Magnificent Seven. So, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Amazon, and the others. So even if we did slow down, that may trigger a recession, unfortunately, just because of how slowly the rest of the US economy is, especially as we see articles about the development of data AI centers, everywhere. So we're kind of in a race where, like, what's the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves, where it's like you can't slow down or the bus is going to explode.
That's about, yeah. It's interesting. It's an interesting situation that we're finding ourselves in. We can't break. We can't slow down. We've got to kind of hope that maybe human ethics and human morality will begin to self-govern, maybe to a certain degree. Because let's get back to that one point that, let's say in a business, they're going to have their own AI, which happens even today. A company has their own proprietary data. This is the company's data. When you sign on to be an employee, it even has language within that contract or services. Hey, whatever content that is created, that belongs to the business. You're
Yeah.
doing it in relation to the business, right? And then there's personal data. Like they don't care what's in your personal computer as long as it has nothing to do with you impinging upon, the rights, the copyrights, the trademarks, whatever is deemed intellectual property of that company. Now
Mhm.
we have AI. To your point, you just said earlier. Now you're coming to work. I'm a Chat GPT guy, you say. I'm a Claude guy, let's say. But they're utilizing Copilot. Like, no, we use Copilot. We don't use anything else. Of
Mhm.
course, they're going to be commingling the data
Mhm.
between the intellectual property of the company, as well as your personal data. And how do you discern what is what?
In terms of the outputs, or like in terms of like the
Yeah,
usage?
just who's the
Uh,
owner of that
so that's a
IP?
okay. I mean, realistically, I mean, the laws still exist as they exist. So for things like trademarks or copyrights or even patents, it is what is registered for that company. But to the point that I think you're getting at in regards to like, well, said tool, ChatGPT or Claude or whatnot, created something that looks exactly or very similar to what our, IP is. And I know, like in recent cases this year, there were holdings by courts in favor of like Anthropic, I believe, in regards to like, oh, well, we bought the books and we scanned all the books and like ripped out the pages and all the stuff. But the court held in favor for Anthropic because of how transformative the output was. Um, and even said, and this was actually the first time I had seen something like this, that the plaintiffs made the wrong argument. Like they went about this the wrong way because they focused more in regards to you took our books and then you used it for your data and your training. When the better argument, at least according to the judge, would have been the use of your technology impacts our industry, like you're overloading the industry with the work that you're outputting. So I think a better analogy to look at this, at least from an external standpoint, like outside of the business, is to, if you're dealing with, for example, countries such as China, who develops a lot of products, and you're trying to make stuff, domestically, then it's like, well, we need something that can help us against the glut of whatever product this is, so that we can maintain our internal market. Internally, I think it's more so just a matter as to, you know, is this I guess it's still to the same extent if we're thinking about it as to how does a company first learn that another company is using their product?
Mhm.
And I think, potentially that may just be, and I think, they have been doing this. It's just if you're Marvel, for example, and you're using like a model that creates images, putting in a prompt to say, well, create an image of Iron Man and see how
Yeah.
close to fidelity that is. And then it's like, here's exhibit or evidence of what we're claiming in court. Because realistically, this all, everything's connected. You have to be able to prove what you're going to court about. And, for some things, it's a lot simpler. For other things, such as text, because that is just communication, it's going to be a lot harder, especially given the non-deterministic nature of AI, in the sense that you type in something, but you can type it in 5 times and get different answers. So it's not one-to-one input and output.
It'd be just luck that you got
Yeah.
something that was similar to somebody else's copyright. But that intellectual property, I think there's going to be new laws that'll be written. There's still some things that we'll see what it all looks like. I'm going to change the conversation a little bit because you do work, especially around HBCUs, things that for people that maybe haven't been exposed to some types of technology over time, but now you have this kind of opportunity, and price is usually not a barrier. Finance is not a barrier; it's there. What are you doing? What is your goal in that respect for what you're doing?
Oh, so in regards to my goal, currently I want to support at least 1,000, diverse students, whether they're law students or just students in general. and just understanding how this technology works and technology as a whole, because obviously AI will impact, existing and new technologies, but then also, what are your rights, especially from like a data and privacy standpoint. Obviously, data and privacy have been major issues for a long time, just with the advent of the internet and social media and your phone and people thinking is listening and watching you and all this stuff. But AI automates that, as we've just talked about. But then even more so from like a societal standpoint, having worked at one of the largest technology companies and also currently being a law student myself, I understand where the gaps are in terms of like, people like myself being aware of what's going on. We're very underrepresented in a lot of professional fields, or at least a lot of high paying fields. And, even not just as students, but even as business owners, which is what I focused on at Microsoft, so really wanting to close this gap so that we're addressing this, across the board. It's not just once you're ready to start a business or you're going to law school, but, even as you're considering what you want to do or how the world is changing around you, you're starting at the same footing as everyone else, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's very important what you just brought up. I like how you brought up the pipeline problem. I know you're deeply involved in that. You want to expand AI, or I'd say IP education for law students. I think that's very, very important because when we don't have that information in the data,
Yeah.
people understand that AI it draws everything that it does through a database. But if your information is not in that database, it can't just come out with answers that are more culturally competent, I would say, and things of that nature, or understand all the nuances of different societies. So it's not just coming out like you've heard of things like British law. Well, British law is for the people that typically live over there in the circumstances that are there. But that same law is not universal because there's different circumstances in other parts of the globe. So these are the things that we need to understand because situations and variables are different. And you're asking, even though right now we're enamored by the AI and what it can do, but understand that it all comes from a data set. And that is its limitations of what that data set means. And let me give you a case in point. This happened that there was an organization, I think in either Alabama or something like that, for a court case. And so they asked the AI to come up with some exhibits, for this particular case. But because of the data that they built it on was built on data from the 1960s, the 1970s, 1980s, it was very biased. It showed a lot of inconsistencies, but the AI doesn't know this. So when it started asking like, wow, should Grant be charged with his crime? Well, it's coming from a very biased standpoint where traditionally Black people were definitely overcharged for different circumstances. The law was just not balanced, and because now they're utilizing this AI bot, it has nothing to do with the AI. It has a lot to do with the data. If we don't clean the data, you don't have data integrity. You can potentially recreate a bigger monster that supposedly was solved 30 to 40 years ago and releasing it back out into the wild. So I think it's important for what you are doing and understanding from a legal standpoint and a regulation standpoint. And I guess my question for you is what is one thing that business leaders should start doing now before the regulation forces their hand?
So I would like to at least just say one thing before answering the question.
Go ahead.
Given that the United States does not have any federal regulations, there is going to be a need to understand, especially if you're a global business, how different countries around the world, especially the European Union, deals with data, especially from GDPR and the EU AI Act. Just because, here in the US, there's no federal laws. There are a few state laws, and as I'm sure you've seen, the president has just come out with a executive order saying that states cannot create AI laws to support innovation. To answer your question, because this is all tied to even just tech and a legal standpoint. What businesses need to do is they need to figure out what it is that they want to be. Like, even if the technology gets better, or maybe it doesn't get any better, what was it that you were looking to be through the use of this technology? Because what AI, at least what is claimed to fame is that it's a genie. You ask it a question and it can answer for you. But there are still a few issues even in that concept. One, you need context. Like, it needs context. It needs to understand what it is you want it to give you. And you have to be more specific than you have ever been in your life. Even when I use AI, I know, like, I'm mentally prepared to have to go through something multiple, if not dozens of times, just so it fully understands what I'm looking for. The other thing is, as we know, AI systems hallucinate. So you can't just go off with whatever it gives you. And I'm not sure, have you heard why models hallucinate?
Oh yeah, they have. There's model drift in a
Yeah.
lot of models because it has especially there's a lot of factors and variables. There's timing that has to take place. So if it can't get an answer quickly or information, a bit of data fast enough to deliver the total output, it'll make things up, right?
Yes.
And I also understand this over time, it'll drift. So if you might have had a point of interest that yesterday that you were a line of thought that you were working on, the next day it does not always have instant memory,
Right.
knowing exactly what it is that you were talking about, unless it's trained properly to look back at that data and to bring it forth. Context is probably one of the biggest problems right now in AI modeling, because it wasn't built. It's not. It's remember. At the end of the day, AI is a calculator.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It just takes everything and turns it into data bits and bytes very quickly, and then and puts it using correlations and patterns.
Right.
Correlations and patterns, not context, not consciousness.
Right.
It's a little different. It might
Exactly.
simulate consciousness, but it's definitely not that. But it can get used in use cases. That's very good. In
Mhm.
other use cases, that's very bad, especially in the legal aspect where context of how things happen or your interpretation for certain
Mhm.
things can be very, miscued. So you got to be very careful.
Exactly. Because, even in addition to, just the AI drift, especially as it gets more data, but data that came from its own systems, there's also the issue of AI models are designed to give an answer under any circumstance. So AI models can't say, I don't know, because it wouldn't be able to provide the right answer, and it can't say I'm going to look into this because it's not a real person. And
That's
then
what I'm talking about.
even to your bias standpoint, which is true, there's the component of how old is the data and how frequent does the data come up in the training, in the training. So something that's very new may not necessarily come up as something that's old, or at least has been in the data multiple times. And of course, there are tools such as RAG, you know, to search the internet to then pull that information, but that's a twofold issue in regards to some of AI is being used to update the internet, and then not everything on the internet was true to begin with. So there's bias and misinformation. So for businesses, and I guess even just for individuals, within organizations, you have to really start thinking as a researcher, or at least operating as such, because you now have to really verify and confirm every piece of information that comes across, your eyes, your ears, whether it's for your day-to-day or for school or just any situation where you're not reading something that was printed before the year ChatGPT came out. Um, because that's just the reality we're going to be living in. So, as a career standpoint, we're still going to have jobs. AI can't take everyone's job because how does anyone get paid? Where does the economy exist? But in terms of like the skill set people may need to have, and just how that escalates up to businesses, it's just research. Because to the point you had made before, and I really wanted to touch upon this, from going from agricultural to industrial to where we are today, it's just been a matter of like abstraction. We're just taking ourselves out of the equation in a direct manner. Like we're not in the fields, we're not on the farms, we're not in the factories for the most part, and now we're trying to take ourselves, at least as a society, out of maybe the research or the decision making standpoint, or just the cognitive standpoint. So, will we have to kind of be managers of the AI tools? Yes, but we kind of already are, because we're using these things to answer questions for ourselves. So it's kind of like having an assistant or just a junior analyst, so to speak. But I think that just means if you have all the free time to not have to dig into all the details, how high level of strategy can you now come up for the tools you're using, to get to the point that you want to be in? And, that's the context of the situation.
I think it's interesting times. The level of creativity should escalate.
Yes.
Because now a lot of more people than before, I can get for instance, Harvard grade information and coursework to a certain degree that can help me to teach myself. YouTube now is like a little micro learner. I can learn how to, like, what I did it the other day. Hey, you know what? I'm going to change out my headlights on the truck. How do I do that? Well, I just pop up, so show somebody actually doing it, and then I go out there and then I do it myself. This is amazing technology. Point is, we have to find the balance. I think is the human race that evolves with this. We have to find how we coexist together. This is like the training wheel. This is like when you're learning to ride a bike when you're little, right? You got to first get the training wheels. You're going to fall a couple times. You're going to scrape your knees. You're going to get back up. And then over time, you're actually going to start riding that bike, you and the bike together. I think that's where we're at with AI. AI is the bike. We got some training wheels on it. Maybe that's the governance, right? We're going to fall over a couple of times, but somebody's going to help pick us back up. And then, eventually we'll get the wheels off and we'll just be rolling and we'll be doing our thing. But that's a process over time. I always thought, I want to leave people with this because I think it's very important. When you look back at movies in science fiction, and you look back at Star Trek and Star Wars, and you see in our imagination that we're already operating with super intelligent robots, let's say, or super intelligent computer systems. Sometimes we use our fears and these things go off the rails and they become the enemy. Sometimes they're the best thing ever. Everybody remembers C3PO or R2D2, and how they operated, with their human component, right? And even in Star Trek and things like that. I think we're getting to that. We're going to find a balance and a harmony of how to use, as you said earlier, AI as an assistant. But we have to understand we can't hold on to the old and then expect the new to just work like it always did. The law and governance and all these copyrights and trademarks and things that how we define these things may change over time.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny you brought up the bike example, because I was a bit older, like maybe 8 or 9 when I first learned how to ride a bike, so I didn't even have training wheels. But even to your point about just like how these, and I apologize, you had just said something very poignant that I really wanted to touch upon, but these tools are going to keep changing. Oh, actually, I do remember, because you talked about like just regulations in regards to like, well, pretty much every other field. And I have a background, or at least a degree in like biotech regulations. So I understand like how the FDA was created. Then it was primarily just to prevent, surprisingly, people from selling things that were not what the label said they were, like realistically. But for AI, that didn't happen. Like once they created ChatGPT, or at least ChatGPT free, we just let it out in the wild. And I remember attending a session once where someone had made this analogy that I'm making as to every other industry is regulated to an extent, except for AI for some reason. And I think that's what has really caused a lot of the challenges as to we can't slow down. It's not what we can slow down. We have not been given the opportunity to really analyze how any of these tools work. And I think this even hurts the AI companies themselves because they're kind of stuck in a permanent race to compete with one another. But it's like a feedback loop. Like we have to create a new system, which everyone has to now understand before we've gotten any rules or regulations out in place, or just even a full understanding of the tools. But that doesn't help the business because you can't keep creating new products because you still need to make money off of the old products. And you have to get rid
Yeah,
of the
yeah, we have a capitalistic society. That's the thing. That's how we grow. We make new things. And we supposedly like, well, you don't want too much government oversight. In the things that you're doing at the same time. Like, look at our social media. I
yeah.
mean, it really came on the market what 09,
Mhm.
2010. It got explosive. It's been 15 years, and we're still just getting to where kind of regulating it. I think it was at Australia or New Zealand or something
Mhm.
like, hey, you got a teenager can't even utilize social media. And I think a lot of that is not because of the tech, it's because of society itself. We have to take some ownership around accountability and responsibility and maturity of what exactly are we talking about and saying and doing and things like that. Are we mature enough, to your point earlier about the bicycle thing? Can we ride a bike or can't we? Have we been trained to ride it responsibly and to do it at some people, yes, you can do that. Some people, it's a challenge. It depends on what that is. AI, it was released. You can generate incredible text, incredible
Mhm.
video, incredible audio, pictures. It's an amazing thing. Where that took a lot more time, but the laws just aren't at that level. I mean, call it what it is.
Yeah. No, no, I agree. I mean, that's primarily the reason why I decided to go to law school, and primarily in regards to biotechnology, but now because of AI, because, there is always going to be that gap, but at least from a policy standpoint, we can create frameworks that could be adopted into law. Because there was this one, I think it was a congressional hearing, where someone had asked Mark Zuckerberg, so like, how does Facebook make money? And Zuckerberg just leans into them like he's kind of confused as to why he's being asked that. And he says, we sell ads, sir. And I think like you can't like that should be the bare minimum of like understanding what you're dealing with. Like, how do you make money? Like, how do you not know what every website on the internet does? I mean, just to be honest. So, it's going to take a while, but I think, with all the current generations and future generations, we at least have a better place. Like to your point, it's been 15 years. But I think everyone makes that analogy or comparison to AI and social media. It's like we are still trying to figure out how social media works, but we can at least see where our shortcomings were, with social media as it now applies to AI potentially. So yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. It's like there's like, because to your point, like in the capitalistic system or just working, you do want things to be perfect, but you also understand like the problems is actually how you get paid at the same time. Like you said, the lawsuits are extinct, but like this is how lawyers make money. We have to be skilled to, really create sustainability within our world. So, you know, there's always going to be things to solve for, as I've said in other conversations. We just have to start figuring out like what we want to implement now so we can, have these starting blocks sooner than
It's going to be an
later.
interesting time as we go forward. I want to thank you again for being being on the show. You got to let people know how to contact you. And I want you to restate one more time exactly what you're doing specifically for HBCU so they understand why they should be getting a hold of you.
Yes. So, the best way to get in contact with me, despite being like in the tech space, I only use LinkedIn, which was also kind of required at my previous job. So you can just follow me or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm, very open to communications. In regards to what I'm doing now, just as the founder of Diverse IP Alliance, which is a nonprofit to help with the education of students, primarily law students, but students overall, because this does impact everyone, in regards to the intersection of technology and law and policy, especially as it impacts diverse and underrepresented communities. And I like to just end on this last note, because we did talk about the United States and to an extent, the EU and China. But one thing that to consider is, at least in what I've seen, when we talk about how AI is being used, even at a national standpoint, for countries such as the United States and China, they're very focused on being cutting edge, like creating the biggest models, best technology. But when we consider countries in the global South, so, just countries that are not as developed or just not as big economically, they're more focused on how do we use this technology to solve issues. So even as we look at all these things, we might see that, smaller countries may come up with better frameworks because they're not focused and maybe can't be focused on creating these big technologies. So they're going to focus on, well, how do we survive and exist in these systems? So, yeah.
Interesting dynamic, as things change. If you really follow history, as new technologies are released, geographies change.
Yes.
And you just, I don't know what they change into, but that's what happens. So I want to thank you again for being on the show. I want to encourage your entire audience to see all the episodes of Follow Brand on my website at 5-Star BDM. That's the number 5. That is star, STR, B for brand, D for development, infomasters.com. I want to thank you again, my friend, for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. You take care. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Man, who's your favorite podcaster? Man, Grant, man. I love Grant's podcast. Well, who's Grant? I'm going to send you the link. I love Grant.
I love the interview. I've done a lot of these, and this is a great one. It's always great to talk to people who know what they're doing, and it's clear you're a great host, and you've done this many times before.
I feel great that we're having this conversation here. Met a new person in business who I previously didn't know.
It was an amazing podcast. Grant is an amazing interviewer. I learned a lot.
Really enjoyed this. Great questions, great talk track. Super appreciate you having me on. It's been a very fun episode to talk about a lot of things that I don't always get to dive into. So this has been a fantastic conversation.
I wouldn't be where I am here today, of course, not on this stage. However, not in my current business projection and my current business model without working with you.
The difference between influence and legacy, it's the platform that carries your voice. You're not visible because you lack talent. You're visible because your brand doesn't speak. I've built 5-Star BDM to change that. Most leaders have the expertise, but not the presence, the vision, but not the vehicle. Across 3 cities, one brand is helping leaders rise above the noise. Here in the heart of Omaha, strategy isn't left to chance. It's engineered with precision. In Omaha, we engineered your Zachner brand, AI-powered, data-driven, precise. TISA went from a local nonprofit to a national speaker in 90 days. We don't guess your brand strategy, we build it. On the shores of St. Croix, your brand takes on depth and meaning, shaped through curated retreats and legacy experiences. In St. Croix, strategy becomes soul. Our retreats don't just refine your message, they rediscover your mission. One founder rewrote his entire company story here. Funding followed 30 days later. This is where leaders remember who they were meant to be. In vibrant Miami, momentum meets amplification. transforming your voice into a movement. In Miami, your brand becomes a movement. Business development accelerators. Audience building. Joy came with an old website and an outdated company name, but she left with 5,000 followers and a waiting list. This is where you scale with soul. 3 cities, 1 mission, your legacy ignited. It started with a thread. Let's pull it together. Stop blending and start leading. 5-Star BDM, where legacy is engineered, embodied, and ignited. Visit 5starbdm.com and book your brand audit today.
What if leadership wasn't about titles, but trials? What if your breakthrough lay beyond fear? In First Light, the brave path to authentic leadership, embark on a journey of courage, truth, and purpose. Face the wolf, hear first thunder, wield the sword and shield. This is more than a book. It's a calling. Are you ready for First Light? Healthcare is evolving rapidly, and future leaders must adapt swiftly. Dr. Sandra Dunbar Smalley shares her journey from clinician to chief learning officer, highlighting the essence of modern leadership. Transitioning from the clinical floor to the executive suite requires more than just expertise. Dr. Dunbar Smalley emphasizes that leadership today isn't about having all the answers. It's about fostering environments where innovation, learning, and human connection can thrive. While mentors provide invaluable guidance, sponsors are crucial for creating opportunities. Dr. Dunbar Smalley underscores the importance of both in navigating the path to leadership. Many leaders, including Dr. Dunbar Smalley, experience imposter syndrome. Yet, they continue to step forward, embracing challenges and growing through them. Discover the 3 pillars transforming healthcare leadership: leading self, leading others, and leading results. These principles guide leaders in creating impactful change. Don't just listen, lead. Subscribe now to Follow the Brand podcast.
Sometimes when you have a particular skill set, you may not even feel you can move in different avenues, but someone will see that. So I think there are 2 camps of people: those that really want to climb that ladder and they're very eager to do it. And then there are those that I call the reluctant leader, where doors may be open and you have to choose whether you're going to go into them. And so I'm in that second camp where I've really just accepted and felt very blessed that people have said, I'd like to give you this opportunity.
What makes a brand unforgettable? It's not just a clever logo or catchy slogan. Memorable brand assets are built from real business insights, the things that make your company truly unique. By digging deep into what sets you apart, you can create visuals, messages, and experiences that really stick with customers. These brand assets help people remember who you are, even in a crowded market. When your identity is clear and consistent, your story becomes easier to share and much harder to forget. So, focus on building brand assets that capture your strengths and values. Make your brand not just seen, but remembered every time customers think about what you offer. What if you could unlock the power of your personal brand, no matter where you are in your journey? That's the heart of Follow the Brand, a podcast where host Grant McGaw reveals that everyone, yes, everyone, has a brand worth sharing. Whether you're a Fortune 500 CEO, an entrepreneur in transition, or just starting to explore your purpose, this show is your invitation to discover what makes you unique. Each episode features intimate conversations with remarkable guests. You'll hear from branding legends like David Auker, Fortune 100 executives, quantum physicists, space mission launchers, and AI innovators. Grant dives deep into their stories, uncovering the purpose and authenticity that drive them forward. But this isn't just about learning from the best. It's about finding the universal patterns that connect us all. Through the BRAVE framework, brand identity, resilience, authenticity, vision, and execution, you'll see how a healthcare executive draws inspiration from an endurance racer's grit, or how an entrepreneur learns strategy from a CIO's tech journey. With over 225 episodes and 50,000 downloads, Grant brings 3 decades of business expertise and wisdom to every conversation. If you're ready to build your executive presence, navigate a career change, embrace new technologies, or simply tell your story more powerfully, Follow the Brand is your guide. Your brand and your purpose are already within you. Let's bring them to light. In today's world, where every voice competes for attention, true influence stands out. One visionary has redefined the landscape of brand building. His name is Grant McGaw, and his innovative approach is setting new standards in the industry. Recognized among the top 30 global gurus in branding for 2025, Grant McGaw is a name synonymous with transformative brand leadership. His work is not just about creating brands, it's about crafting legacies. Through his visionary strategies, he is helping leaders across the globe redefine their impact and influence. At the heart of Grant's success is the revolutionary BRAVE framework. BRAVE stands for branding, resilience, authenticity, vision, and excellence. Each element is meticulously crafted to guide leaders in building brands that are not only successful, but also meaningful. Branding sets the foundation, resilience ensures longevity, authenticity builds trust, vision drives innovation, and excellence guarantees quality. This framework is where data meets storytelling and strategy meets authenticity. From healthcare to technology, Grant's methodology is reshaping how industries approach branding. His strategies are not confined to a single sector. They are universal, adaptable, and effective. By integrating the BRAVE framework, organizations are experiencing a transformation in how they connect with their audiences, ensuring their message resonates and endures. Grant McGaw's influence extends beyond frameworks. Through his best-selling books and the acclaimed Follow the Brand podcast, he shares insights and strategies that empower leaders to elevate their brand presence. These resources are a testament to his commitment to shaping the future of branding. Grant McGaw is not just influencing the present, he is shaping the future of brand influence. His work is a beacon for those seeking to lead with purpose and impact. By embracing his methodologies, leaders are equipped to navigate the complexities of modern branding with confidence and clarity. Discover the BRAVE approach to brand leadership and unlock the potential of your brand. At 5-Star BDM, where vision meets results, Grant McGaw invites you to embark on a journey of transformation. Experience the power of strategic branding and redefine your impact in the world.
Hey everyone, it's Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM and host of the award-winning Follow the Brand podcast and TV series, where I help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. My genius is personal brand development through intelligent communication and helping you achieve your business and career goals. I am a requested speaker on digital technology and brand development issues. I want to work with you to increase the value of your current opportunities while attracting new ones. Every one of you is unique, and we all share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. As a super connector, I work with you as an executive coach to guide you along the complicated business and career development road, providing the enhancement tools and information you need to succeed. Together, I will help you succeed in today's challenging business climate. I will evaluate and measure your progress. Best of all, I am right alongside you every step of the way. Build the brand called you. Genius is coming. Tune in for our next show or click on our website at www.5starbdm/followthebrandtv. Thank you.